Antarctica and the islands that dot the southern oceans are some of the most isolated places in the world, cold and empty, with mostly birds and seals to greet you. But in 1840, on the Kerguelen Islands, the tracks of an animal familiar to man would be found imprinted on the shores of a land far from the nearest stable. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series all things cryptids, and today we are going to look into the Kerguelen Island horse tracks. Today's topic takes us to the Kerguelen Islands, an archipelago of French-owned islands that sits in the southern Indian Ocean within the Antarctic convergence, making them quite isolated from the rest of the world. Excluding the Heard and McDonald Islands, the nearest land with a substantial population is Madagascar, which is a whopping 1,800 nautical miles away. And although animals such as rabbits, sheep, cats, and reindeer have been introduced to the islands over the years, the island would have been entirely empty land when it was first discovered, with only seals and migratory seabirds and penguins to give you company. In February of 1772, these islands would be officially discovered and claimed by France, with the islands mainly being used by whalers and sealers, with some expeditions occurring in between. But in 1840, the islands would be thoroughly surveyed by the crew of James Clark Ross during his expedition of the Antarctic. But as Ross and his crew stepped foot onto the island, barren of land animals, he would spot hoof prints. These prints were 3 inches long and 2 inches deep into the island's soft volcanic soil, with him believing it to have belonged to a pony or a donkey. These tracks appeared fresh with no sign of erosion, being made within days of the crew's landing at most. The tracks went on for quite a while, but eventually they would end at a rocky terrain. Ross found this quite interesting, wondering how, on an island devoid of land mammals entirely, there would be fresh tracks from a small-hoofed creature like a pony or a mule or a donkey. And even though Captain Ross's survey of the island would be the most thorough survey to that point of the islands, no horse or the remains of any horses were found on any of these islands, leaving this case a mystery. The case of the Kerguelen Island horse has intrigued many, with some interesting theories popping up. One theory that Captain Ross personally believed was that the equid made it to the island following a shipwreck, with the pony being left stranded on the island. A major problem with this theory is that no shipwrecks or any sign of one had been documented or discovered during the survey, with the latest shipwreck to that point being the wreck of the Favorite, which left sealer John Nunn and his crew of 3 stranded on the Kerguelen for 2 years. The islands were popular for sealing and whaling at the time, and given that this is an island hundreds of miles away from the nearest continent, there would be no need to bring a horse with you. One theory, which seems pretty plausible to me, is that crew from a prior expedition brought a horse or a donkey with them. Siberian and Manchurian horses have all been used in polar expeditions, and have shown to be very useful, suited for traveling rugged terrain, surviving in freezing environments, and in tough times will eat just about any rations provided, including, very disturbingly, seal meat when push comes to shove. Yeah, you might not know this, but no animal is truly herbivorous, and you probably saw that video of a horse eating a little chick and being absolutely disturbed by that. Additionally, there actually have been equids that would go on to survive on the islands in the mid-20th century, with mules being introduced to the Kerguelen in 1948 and surviving for about 5 years, along with reports of Shetland ponies being brought over in the 1950s. So it would be possible for a small population of horses better suited for the cold to survive on the island for a while, but even then, there are still huge issues. This herd of horses would have to have been quite a substantial population to survive, yet only the tracks of a single horse was found, and no horse, alive or dead, could be found after this survey. Additionally, the crew of the Favorite also made no mention of these horses, and they spent 2 years stranded right near them, apparently. Not to mention that the living conditions for these ponies would have been miserable, being bombarded by the frigid winds with no windbreak in the area. Another theory regarding the tracks is that they could have came from, oddly enough, an elephant seal, as they can leave behind quite unusual tracks. But upon looking at elephant seal tracks, they seem way too chaotic and to me seem more like ATV tracks than anything. Also, Ross, who has been to plenty of seal-inhabited beaches, would have known what seal tracks look like, especially given he outright mentioned the abundance of seal and penguin tracks upon stepping onto the island shores. The likelihood of a horse evolving on this island would also have been extremely unlikely, as the last time the Kerguelen Islands had contact with Africa was some 180 million years ago, during the reign of the dinosaurs, leaving the Kerguelen isolated from most of the world for absolute ages. And even when you look at it like from the angle of a hoax or a prank, it would be extremely elaborate to go walking around for miles on an island that you have never been to wearing horse hoof shoes, then rush back while leaving no footprints of your own before your captain notices that you are gone. And Ross would have little reason to make up something as so tame as a horse on an island. The whole case is just so strange. The only thing I could think of is that somebody maybe brought their horse with them to the islands at some point, maybe on an expedition, or they tried to live there and just didn't tell anybody, and they ended up just leaving it there with nobody knowing. But even then, no horse poop, no bones, or no other tracks were found. And even then, these tracks were from a recent animal. The animal was, seemingly had just made these tracks. It's just such a weird case. Antarctica is a place that is often the centerpiece of many movies and conspiracy theories, and a huge reason behind that is due to just how far it is from us. Excluding research stations, Antarctica is just thousands of miles of nothing. Just ice, mountains, and tundras of just nothing, and within all of that, you are thousands of miles away from the nearest human being. And although Antarctic and subantarctic islands like the Kerguelen aren't as big and aren't as far from the rest of the world, they're still very similar as they give that effect of isolation. Several animals have been introduced when people started coming back to the islands, but in 1840, the Ross expedition arrived to penguins, seals, seabirds, and then nothing else. But unlike the other Antarctic islands they arrived on, the fresh tracks of an animal all too familiar were found, almost as if it was welcoming Captain Ross and his crew. And even though the expedition was tasked with surveying the Kerguelen in its entirety, whatever made the tracks was never found. It's as if they reached that island, grew wings, and then just flew away like a Pegasus. I can't get over just how strange this whole case is, and given how long ago it was, we may never know the equid behind those tracks that they found back in 1840. And that's going to do it for the Kerguelen Island horse tracks. And man, this was just so mysterious. Like most of the time when I'm looking into cryptid cases, it's very clear cut. It's like, oh, this is like clearly a hoax, or like, oh, this is an animal that maybe they saw, it's like out of place, somehow got here. But I don't know, this one's just so strange, it's like, you'd have figured that if they found horse tracks, it would have found, like, poop or something, or, like, the remains of something, but, like, it really does seem like, like a Pegasus, like, flew to the island and then flew off. But what do y'all think about it? Do you think that this is somebody's, pony or donkey that they brought with them to try, to set up a farmland on the island? Do you think that this was all just some hoax or something? Let me know in the comments down below. I really want to see what y'all have to say about this one in particular. Also, interestingly, this wouldn't be the only cryptid that Captain Ross had spotted, and that this expedition spotted in general. And we could talk about that sea serpent at another time, because I find it's pretty interesting. I was probably going to add that into this video, but I figured, you know what, there's enough here to make a solo video of it, and I might want to talk about that sea serpent in isolation. But again, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you like the video, subscribe if you like this content, with the notification bell ringed so that you are notified the exact nanosecond the video goes up. And if YouTube doesn't tell you, oh, they're trying to hide us. Big ground sloth is trying to keep us down. And make sure to leave a comment, what you thought about it, any theories, and any suggestions. I'm all ears. This video itself was a comment suggestion. So, it's like a lot of banger videos turn out to be comment suggestions. And also, if you really, really, really like this content and you want to support the channel, you can become a member for just $3 a month. You get access to videos early, and I try to give you priority on suggestions. But with that, I'm not going to keep you much longer. But again, I'd like to thank you for watching, though, and make sure that you have a damn good day.